11 years ago, that's when I started battling shoulder pain. And it took me a little over a year to completely recover from that. And what I realized was that it wasn't because there was a lack of specific exercises, but more so a framework for me to approach my recovery. And so in this video, I wanted to share more about the Isometrics framework that I've used personally to help me recover from my shoulder pain. We'll be going through the different isometric types, along with the variables that go along with it for your specific adaptation. And you can do this even if you have a busy schedule or have minimal equipment. Rehab doesn't always have to happen in the gym. That's why isometrics are so powerful. You can get a joint-friendly strength stimulus anywhere, using static contractions instead of chasing reps on a machine. So for people who don't know what an isometric exercise is, it's when you contract the muscle without it moving. There's no shortening, no lengthening, you just hold tension. Isometrics can be one of the fastest ways to calm down tendon pain. And that's why they are commonly used for acute tendon flare-ups, especially when someone still needs to train or keep rehab moving. But here's the part that most people miss. Isometrics can work more effectively for your recovery if you pick the right type and the right angle for your goal. So let me show you the framework I use for shoulder pain. Because most videos out there give you exercises, but they don't tell you specifically which type to use for pain relief, mobility, or strength. And just holding the position isn't going to be the most effective approach. So before you do anything, decide what today's goal is. If your goal is pain relief, we're trying to calm the symptoms and keep the shoulder training safely. If your goal is mobility, then we're trying to expand the range without irritating the joint. And if your goal is strength, then we are looking to build capacity so the pain stops coming back. Your job is to fill that gap with the right isometric variables within your current capacity. Externally, the visuals might look the same, but internally, you're driving different intentions. The first isometric type that I'll be covering today will be overcoming isometrics, and this will be either a push or a pull against something that won't move. This is where you're trying to move an immovable object, like the floor, the wall, towel, or even a pinned bar. It's best for maximum strength work, rate of force development like your explosiveness, or training when you want high force with low fatigue. It's great when you need to fit in strength work but can't afford to get overly sore. If you want to keep track of your progress, I have a free progress tracking sheet. It's free in a newsletter, so you can download it in the link below. The next isometric type will be yielding isometrics. This is where you're holding a position while gravity, body weight, or an external load tries to pull you out of it. It's going to be best for tendon rehab and improving tissue tolerance so that you can improve your ability to handle load without flaring it up. One important note is that yielding tends to fatigue faster, but it's extremely useful for joint health and rehab. This is my personal preference, especially for beginners, because it's harder to cheat. You're forced to keep steady tension, which builds better body awareness and control earlier on. For the third isometric type will be pills and rails, progressive and regressive angular isometric loading. If your shoulder feels stuck in positions like overhead or behind your back, and you need to build strength and neurological control in those end ranges, this is where pills and rails come in handy. You gently find your end ranges and then contract to own that position and gradually expand those ranges over time. The key point here is not to push to max effort if you are still in your recovery phase. Rather, you want to use an intensity that is challenging but still tolerable. If you're going through your recovery and you still have pain, you don't always need to stop training. Isometrics are one of the best tools early on because they let you load the tissue without a lot of movement. And here's why it works so well for rehab. It provides an analgesic effect, so they can reduce pain and make movement feel easier. It's less fatiguing, so you can get a strong training effect without destroying your nervous system. You have a lower injury risk. Fewer moving parts means fewer chances to aggravate the area. And honestly, this is why isometrics can show up in things like yoga, Pilates, and even high-level athletes using it, because they're building strength through stillness and control. In the early loading phase, the goal is smooth tension, not sudden force. So don't suddenly apply a lot of force into the hold or the exercise. Use iso ramping instead, which is gradually building up your effort, holding it, and then gradually easing off the tension. That helps to minimize the jerky movements, which is like a sudden spike in force that can irritate the sensitive tissue. So here's the progression I want you to remember. Do low intensity isometrics for pain relief and control, Then move on to higher intensity isometrics for building strength and load-bearing capacity, before moving on to your dynamic reps or your isotonic reps once the shoulder is able to handle the loads. If you skip step 1, then you might get a flare-up or even re-injure yourself. If you're not sure what to do today, you can start by picking up 1 to 2 yielding isometric options that feel stable. Hold 30 to 45 seconds with about 30 to 50% of intensity. Do 2 to 4 sets and keep the pain levels below 3 out of 10. Once that feels easy and the symptoms are cleared, you can move on to overcoming isometrics and pills and rails. So now that you know how to perform the isometrics, let's talk about how we can program this around your busy lifestyle. Look, you don't need an hour-long rehab session. Most of my clients are busy professionals. We use micro sessions that you can do at home or even in the office. Daily isometrics can work if you manage fatigue. So isometrics are efficient as long as you balance intensity across the week. Here's how you can structure it. Look to match the isometric type of the day and put your higher effort isometrics on days when you can recover or before a rest day. Use lighter, technique-focused holds on busier days so you get stimulus without draining your nervous system. If you're dealing with tendon-related shoulder pain, short, low-intensity loading more frequently can help. You can do a 10-minute session, split into small sets with different exercises, and you can do it twice a day with an interval of 6 hours in between so that it can support collagen synthesis. But this depends on how reactive your shoulder is. If it flares up, we reduce frequency and intensity. So remember to listen to your body, because everybody's condition is unique. But how do you ensure your program is efficient, effective, and done safely? Well, let me share with you some common mistakes that many people overlook. Most people pick whatever shoulder rehab drill or corrective exercises they see online, and then they're shocked it doesn't transfer over. So where your shoulder is in space matters as much as the exercise itself. And if it hurts around a specific position when you're doing a certain exercise, you have to determine what kind of pain is it. If it's a pain which is like a sharp pinching pain, you want to try and detour or avoid training in those specific zones. However, if it's a pain where it's just a little stiff, then this is something that we can itch towards to and train closer to that zone. And this is where the movements might feel a little bit jerky, the control might not be as smooth. This is what we call the sticking points. So in order to improve those areas where you have poor neurological control, we can use positional isometrics, increasing the intensity week to week. The other common mistake is only training the injured side. Your good side is one of the fastest ways to protect the bad side. There's strong evidence for cross-education, which is the training in an uninjured side, especially with isometrics. This can help the injured side keep more strength and reduce muscle loss while it's painful to train directly. So if your right shoulder really hurts to the point that you can't train it, you can still train the left side using isometric holds, and this can help to provide that spillover benefit. And the last common mistake is always trying to train to full range of motion like it's a religion. Training in full range of motion when you're not ready is one of the fastest ways to stall your progress. Sometimes the best move is to train static strength at the exact angle you're weak or painful. Now that you know what to look out for, here are some added bonuses that can boost the effectiveness of your isometrics for better overall mobility. One of the most underrated rehab accelerators is to start training the rest of your body. Because more total body training usually means better circulation, better movement quality, and faster overall recovery without poking the injury every day. So here's how to plug this into your week. So the first thing you can do is to start priming your joints. And this can be done with controlled articular rotations, CARs. Think of this as greasing the groove so your body finds clean positions before you load anything. If you're planning to incorporate this into your own training program, you can use this before your main lifts. Blend isometrics into your sets. So instead of adding a separate rehab block into your day, bake it into your normal training program. Use controlled tempo. You can add 3 to 5 second pauses at end range, for example. And during the pause, keep hard intentional contractions, not just hanging out in that position. This gives you the joint-friendly stimulus inside your workout. And the combo that I feel works best is using isometrics and eccentrics. During the recovery, combining these two tends to produce one of the best results. A simple progression could look like starting with a longer duration isometrics at moderate intensity, and then gradually working towards higher intensities, followed by Isometrics for strength and tendon adaptation. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to improve the functional mobility of your rotator cuffs so that you can continue to build resilience in your shoulders for the long term.